now tuned into the greatest.
Disciplining myself, so when that bag come, I won't fumble. I'm just stacking on the low, but hey, I'm tired of being humble. Let me get to it. That motivation music, get control of your life. Don't let nobody else do it. Cause we're not gonna have Metro S550s cruising. Feel like you winning on the ground.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. Now, I appreciate you tuning in to the first interactive sports podcast, a community that makes sure your voice is heard. So if you hear something you agree with, you disagree with, you like or you dislike, go ahead, shoot us a quick take, 219-413-9405. And of course, we will play your take back on our next episode. And then shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this episode. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase when you use the promo code The Run Podcast. Now, this only works for first-time users on the mobile app or website. So I don't know about you, but football season is about to start. It's a lot of concerts going on in the summer, so you definitely need to go ahead and book those tickets to whatever it is you're into. Now, one of the things I'm into right now is the preseason, and I got to give a fair warning to a lot of people because for some reason, and maybe it's just because it's the offseason and it's been taking so long for the actual NFL season to come back. But a lot of people have been getting crazy hype about everything that happens in the preseason. When in reality, man, you gotta relax a little bit. You gotta remember this is just the preseason. Like, people on the field in the preseason is fighting for third string, fourth string, just for simply a roster spot on special teams. Like, it's far from the higher up level that we're used to seeing during the regular season. So I understand, it is exciting to even watch football again, but ultimately it means absolutely nothing. So nobody should really be getting hype about anything that's happening in the preseason, especially not no wins and losses. I know it's kind of difficult when your team is actually winning games in the preseason. You're like, yeah, my teams, we're going to be good this year. I get it, but hey, just using the Bears as an example, I'm sorry, Bears fans, but we seen Caleb Williams turn into the preseason MVP last year. He was lighting it up, throwing dimes, all kind of stuff, and everybody was hype about that. And then we see exactly what that turned out to be for the Chicago Bears. So I'm just saying, using that as an example, don't get too excited about the preseason in the NFL. Just let things play out. Let week 1 to 3 go by. Then you start getting a little hype about what your team is doing. And I know it's not easy to do, but just giving the heads up on it's better that way. Trust me, because if you get hype in the preseason, watching what your team does, and then they come out here and lay an egg week 1 through week 5, you're going to be pissed. I'm trying to help you out. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. I know how the game goes. I've been dealing with it. Come on, man. I'm just trying to help y'all out. Anyway, speaking of preseason, there's a lot of different things that come with the preseason. And one of those things are the predictions of the preseason of the records. Now, I feel definitely disrespected because Bleacher Report put out a list of winning records and just records in general for each team this upcoming season. So I took a look, of course, checking out my team, seeing what they're doing. And then you won't believe where the hell they have my Atlanta Falcons on this damn ranking of predictions and all kind of things. So it's crazy. And I'm going to show you really quick on the share screen, but this is ridiculous. They have the Atlanta Falcons, Bleacher Report, going 8-9 in this 2025 season, which is just ridiculous to me, considering the amount of talent they have on this team. And they don't have a crazy difficult schedule. So mind-blowing as soon as I seen this. I'm like, couldn't believe it. But this is their explanation for it. I'll just read through it really fast. It said, Michael Penix Jr. provided a spark for the Atlanta Falcons. Aerial attack the last 3 weeks of the 2024 season, despite 2 overtime losses in that stretch. As he gains more experience, the second-year quarterback should be able to move the ball through the air with consistency. He's hinted at a growing rapport with tight end Kyle Pitts, which is a good sign for the passing attack. However, Penix might have to win scoring shootouts like he did last year. Atlanta boasted its pass rush, signing Leonard Floyd, in selecting Jalen Walker and trading up for James Pierce Jr. in the first round of this year's draft. But returning starter cornerbacks Mike Hughes and D. Alford allowed passer ratings higher than 105 last year. A.J. Terrell gave up a completion rate about 10% higher in 2024 than he allowed in 2023. So they're trying to say our defensive backs are washed, and they finish off this summary by saying Atlanta's secondary could be exposed in crucial matchups. Now look, Bleacher Report, 8-9 for a valid reason. I understand that. You saying our secondary is weak is kind of debatable, because the thing they didn't really pay attention to, you mentioned that we boosted up our pass rush in the front seven, adding James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker and Leonard Floyd. You mentioned that part, but you ain't mentioned last year that we couldn't get a damn stop in the backfield to save our lives. Tell me what defensive backs in the NFL can cover these fast wide receivers and these slot receivers and running backs for 35 seconds because quarterbacks is getting all the time in the world to throw the ball. If you don't get a pass rush or any pressures on the quarterback like the Falcons failed to do last year, of course your secondary is going to be penalized for it. Of course the secondary is going to look trash. And meaning all of this trash looks that the secondary had last year because of the bad pass rush, Jesse Bates still was the top safety in the NFL. So I understand the logic that they're trying to do here, but truth be told, bro, this sounds like some stuff that they seen from ChatGPT. That seems like they asked them from a quick summary, which it probably was, to be honest, and ended up just rolling with whatever punches they could get out of it. Because this makes no sense to me. Noticing that, okay, yeah, the secondary percentages of this passer rating, he didn't do a good job. But just like you mentioned in the beginning of the article, it should occur to any other person in the world that if the pass rush is bad, then obviously the secondary is going to be penalized for it. And that's exactly what happened to the Atlanta Falcons last year. So 8-9 record with this schedule of the Atlanta Falcons, I think is a joke. And you know, I think they didn't really pay attention to what the Falcons had going on. And, you know, I kind of want to summarize this up just to say, I'm cool with being underdogs. And I'm cool with being overlooked as long as the Falcons come out and prove everybody wrong. Because I say give it to maybe week 6 and the offense is going to be very explosive again. And the biggest change from last year's Atlanta Falcons to this year's Atlanta Falcons is going to be that pass rush and the ability to get pressure on other teams' quarterback. And this will, of course, trickle down to the secondary getting more and more stops and ultimately the defense forcing more and more turnovers. So that's cool that Bleacher Report got us at 8-9. They said our secondary is washed. The secondary is trash. All of that is cool. It sounds good when you type it in the chat GPT and say, hey, give me a quick summary of the Falcons and what their record will be, which they probably did. But I'm going to just say it like this, man. I'm cool with being underdogs, and I can't wait until the season starts because this is the type of thing where it makes me want to go even more crazy as an Atlanta Falcons fan when I know that we're going to be better and you know, the time comes to where we're winning ball games. This is why I warned a lot of people on me acting extremely belligerent once the Falcons start winning these games. This is why I say things like that, because the constant disrespect is just insane. Now, on the brighter side, I will say this. There's some light with the Atlanta Falcons. One of the things I think needs to be talked about here is the fact that the biggest factor for the Atlanta Falcons on if they'll have a lot of success this season is going to be heavily relied on the rookies. I think James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, even Leonard Floyd, obviously not a rookie, but Xavier Watts. A lot of these guys are going to be very, very impactful for the Atlanta Falcons on if this defense comes to life, because we struggled last year. We were 31st in sacks last year, trying to get to other teams' quarterbacks and actually getting stops by getting in the backfield. We were 31st in sacks. Ridiculous. So with the pressure being on James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker, these guys got to show up big, and they got to really get a lot of stops and get in the backfield, get the pressures, and hopefully get some sacks on the other team. Because if this helps, this will really, really boost our defense, and this will show that, hey, this is not the same Atlanta Falcons team as last year. If we can get sacks on other teams, quarterback and things like that, get some good pressures and things like that. So that's going to be the biggest factor. And I know right away a lot of people probably think like, damn, man, well, that's a lot of pressure on the young guys and the rookies. But the fact is, 31st in sacks last year is not difficult to improve from. That's easy to improve from already. The young guys can definitely top that, if anything. And then you got to keep in mind, too, the year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl 51, I don't want to talk about how the results ended out, but the year they went to the Super Bowl, we had a lot of impactful players from the draft in that previous year. I mean, you think it was McKinney over there. You had, what was the other guy? The other linebacker who was a huge help. Duke Riley, he was a huge help in that front seven as well. So those guys, we drafted them, and then they ended up showing up big time for the Atlanta Falcons defense that year they did go to the Super Bowl. So, it is possible. It's something that can happen. So, you got to keep those things in mind. That's where I'm thinking when I think of the expectations for these young guys on this Atlanta Falcons roster. But ultimately, man, only time will tell. I'll say this, man. To wrap up with my Atlanta Falcons talk, I love that the Falcons have become the team to talk to when you need a quarterback. So the reason I bring this up is because the Rams' Matthew Stafford has been going through some injuries with some back issues. And, the rumors are starting to circle around saying the Rams going to get in some conversations with the Atlanta Falcons to get Kirk Cousins. Now, will the Rams look good with Kirk Cousins? Probably. But I just love the fact that if any team has a QB problem and they want to get another quarterback, you got to go talk to the Atlanta Falcons. You got to go talk and see what Kirk Cousins is doing over there, see what they got going on with Kirk Cousins. I love that we get to kind of play. I love that we have this much power, really. That's really what it is. So hopefully Matthew Stafford is all right and he can get on the field and play, but God forbid he doesn't. Hey, Rams, y'all know who to call. God forbid the Saints, Tyler Snow, whatever. Hey, as bad as he's been looking, God forbid y'all want a quarterback. Y'all know who to contact. Hey, just saying. Falcons is the one with the extra quarterback. And there's a lot of teams in this league right now that's going to need an extra quarterback to either help them get in the playoffs or just help them turn around their season. So you know who to call if that is the case there. So I'll leave it at that, man. Look, we got some more stuff coming up. AFC North, AFC South predictions. I had to break this up because trying to predict them all in one episode is going to be a lot. So had to predict this and break it up a little bit, but stay tuned. We got some more stuff coming up in just a sec. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the predictions, and it's halftime.